Hello, and welcome to episode 34 of the Women in Manufacturing Association's Hear Her Story podcast. My name is Allison Graylis, president and founder of the Women in Manufacturing Association. In this episode, I sit down with Tricia Bright, a passionate member of the Women in Manufacturing member community and current chair of the WiM New York chapter. Tricia works as operations manager at Allendale Machinery Systems, where she has been developing her career for almost 13 years. Being 1 month into the year, we know that many people are reflecting on the previous year, and some may be considering new career pathways. We're excited for you to join us for this inspiring episode as we highlight Tricia's unique career journey and focus on career development. Enjoy this episode. So welcome, Tricia, to Hear Her Story. We're thrilled to have you today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's truly an honor to be here today with you guys.
Well, I'm really excited to learn more about you and hear your story and how you navigated your career thus far in manufacturing. So if you might be willing to kind of kick us off and share a little bit about your background and where you grew up, early influences, I think that helps lend some perspective as we go through the rest of our conversation.
Sure. So my name is Tricia Bright. I am the operations manager at Allendale Machinery. Allendale Machinery is a third generation family owned company, and I'm not family. I always have to set that up when I first start talking because I tend to get very passionate about this topic. So if I talk too fast or too much, it's just the passion coming out. So we sell and service manufacturing equipment. So we don't actually manufacture anything. However, we support manufacturers throughout New York and New Jersey, and it's all walks of life. It might be medical devices, jewelry, job shops, really anything you can think of. Manufacturing is being done by everyone for everything, everywhere. So I am also the chapter chair for the state of New York for Women in Manufacturing. And in my spare time, I am a mother of two. I have a 13-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old daughter, and I am happily married to one of my coworkers, actually. So my husband and I actually work together. He's worked with Allendale Machinery for 15 years, and in March, I will be coming up on 13 years. We met here, we both stayed here. I grew up in Warwick, New York, which is about an hour outside of New York City. And oddly enough, that is where I still live today. I did leave for a while, and then I came back because I had such an amazing childhood and upbringing living in a smaller community. And it was where I wanted to raise my daughters. So now I get to go to parent-teacher conferences at the same schools where I went to middle school, I went to high school, and it really is a full circle moment for me being able to raise my daughters there, as well as my husband, who is not from the area, lives there also and enjoys it just as much as I do. When I was younger, I actually, starting from kindergarten, so 5 years old, I did a lot with TV production. I was in a handful of commercials. I did a handful of voiceovers. I was actually a voice for a cartoon on Nickelodeon called Kablam. And now I'm going back about 25 years ago. So back in the olden days. And when, I was always in front of the camera as a kid. And I think by the time I got to 8th grade, you're developing into a young woman, being in front of the camera wasn't for me. And I took an interest in what was going on behind the scenes. So starting from, I guess, 9th grade, 10th grade, I really knew I wanted to do something with communications and media studies, and I wanted to be involved in TV production. So I loved my high school communications teacher. He was an amazing man. He really helped everyone with whatever projects we had going. If you had a crazy idea for a little 5-minute TV show you wanted to produce, he was there helping you during your lunch period, during his office hours or after school. And I really loved every aspect of film production, TV production, being behind the camera. So I went on to college and I actually studied mass communications, media studies. And I was really fortunate when I was a junior in college to have an internship with Channel 2, CBS, working with an investigative reporter. So I was 19 years old and in the streets of New York City. I remember one time we went into a dry cleaning place that claimed they were green and they didn't use any chemicals. And we had a story on, saying otherwise. So we went in to bust them for not being green. But it really was an awesome experience. That was in 2008. I think we all know what happened in 2008. We went into a recession. So when I graduated in 2009, the offer that I hoped to have with CBS just wasn't there because they were in a hiring freeze. So coincidentally, I graduated college in May of 2009. And July of 2009, I found out I was expecting my first daughter. So I was a young mother. I was 23 years old. And I was expecting my first baby. We just went to 4 years of college, got my bachelor's degree, and then I was pregnant. And I don't mean to sound like, and then I was pregnant, but it was not what was in the cards for me. So I had to figure it out. So I was a single mother at 23. We went our separate ways, and it was figuring out what I do next, not just for myself, but now for this young child that I had. And so that was, my daughter was born in April of 2010. And in March 2011, I started at Allendale. It was definitely on accident that I ended up where I am today, but a really great accident, not the painful kind. So as a single mother, I was just trying to find something. I had to take care of myself and my child. And the joke of Allendale is that when I was interviewed, it was for a part-time receptionist position. And my boss at the time even continued the joke to say, I wasn't even really sure you'd be any good at it. So basically, it's the story of a family-owned company taking a chance on, had very little experience in an office setting. I had worked for an event coordinator. I had worked at my internship with CBS. But really, when it came to an office job and the manufacturing industry, I had little to no knowledge. But what I did have was the willingness and the eagerness to learn and figure out where I fit into this world of Allendale and into the manufacturing world.
So it sounds like you came upon manufacturing at a time when you really were looking for an opportunity, a way, I think, primarily to support yourself and to support this new baby that you had. And the company, as you said, was willing to take a chance on you, even though you maybe didn't have direct experience, and found this entrance into their workplace as, it sounds like, first maybe in an administrative role and a support role. And, as you started this career in manufacturing in that spot, what were your early impressions? What did you think of manufacturing? And what were some of the things that you liked about this new career that you had just started?
So I remember, now, granted, I started as a receptionist, so I was just answering the phone. And I remember probably about a weekend calling my mother on my ride home saying, I hate it here. I don't want to be here. This is not fun. It's boring. I have to wait for the phone to ring. I am a very patient person. My children might say otherwise, but I am a very patient person. So what it was for me in the first 3 months, it was kind of trying to find my footing. Now, again, like I said, I had very little office experience, no manufacturing experience whatsoever. And I think for me, when I first came on, I realized that we didn't even have job titles 13 years ago. I came in and I was receptionist or administrative assistant, and it wasn't ever really clearly defined. So I kind of took that as an opportunity to define it for myself. Now, when I have new hires, I have a very nice, clear job description. Everyone has a title, everything is laid out. But I had a moment where that was not clear to me. So for me personally, and this is not going to look like your traditional corporate growth whatsoever. When you're in an environment where it's a family-owned business, if you're not family, you're not a leader of the company, or you're not an executive of the company. And that dynamic has really changed for us over the past few years. But back 13 years ago, I came in, no experience. And what I did for myself and for the company was I started off answering phones. And then the next step, we had a lot of turnover back then. So I realized, okay, this person left. So how can I fill in for them? And how can I learn that role, conquer it, and then move on to the next thing? So when the next new hire comes in, I've now made myself a valuable asset to the company because I can train that next new hire. So I started working with our service department. So because we're supporting manufacturers, we have a team of field service technicians who go out on the road. They're doing the repairs, they're diagnosing the machines. So within our service department, I was learning how to process the quotes, the orders, not so much the technical side, but the brains behind the operation. I like to think of our admins as. So once I kind of conquered that service side, then it was time to hire a second person. So once once we hired that second person, then I moved on to our capital equipment. So I started learning how to quote the machines and do the machine orders. Now, those are a lot more complex than a simple part order. There's a lot more that goes into the options of the machine, or even just the monetary value is very much different than a parts order or service quote. So I really started to learn the sales side of things, not so much how to go sell the machine. Again, it was never very technical. But once I conquered that, I moved on into our tooling and accessories division. Now, in between all of that, and I know I talk very fast, so just be mindful, I'm taking you through 13 years worth of time. So none of this was, okay, a month is up and I'm done with the admin work for sales, and now I'm going to move on to this. It was gradual. It was a very, very slow climb with a lot of patience involved. Once I got all of these different administrative departments under my belt, then I became even more valuable to the company because I was able to cross-train, or new hires would come in, I would train them, cross-train them, as well as if someone was out sick, I was able to cover. So I was able to bounce around. So never, for about probably 6 or 7 years, I was not defined as you are the admin for the service department or the admin for the sales department. There were always people in those positions that I was there to assist. I mean, there's some things in between, but that's kind of how I came to the position I'm in today, where now I oversee each one of those administrative departments. And I have a team of, I believe, 10 right now.
That's excellent. So it sounds like you developed a bit of your own opportunities within the company. So you saw this way that you could develop yourself. And as you said, make yourself even more valuable to the company, which was really smart. So you were creating this kind of knowledge base of, okay, I want to find other places I can be an asset, but as well, I'm sure career kind of and job security was something of importance as well. So making sure that you were invaluable to the company for all those years. Retention is a huge thing in manufacturing. So we as an organization work with a lot of manufacturing companies as we explore what are new mechanisms for recruitment of individuals, but equally, if not more important, is the retention of employees. And I think right now, present day, the median is about a 5-year kind of stay rate at most manufacturing companies. You obviously have shared, you've been with the company for 13 years. What are the reasons that you've stayed, and what's kept you in manufacturing and kept you at Allendale?
So honestly, I feel as though, even though I'm going on year 13 next month, I'm just getting started. And I know that sounds so silly after all this time, but for what I just ran through, my base at Allendale, I was learning the company, and I was learning each department and each process and each procedure and how to properly implement them. I work very closely with our director of operations and making sure the day-to-day business of the company is running smooth. But it wasn't till about, I guess I would like to say, probably the last 2 to 3 years where I actually started learning more about the manufacturing industry itself. So I was able to go out into the field and visit some of our customers and actually be on a shop floor and see the equipment that we're selling, see it in production, and meet different engineers. And that's always something I say, I'm not an engineer, but man, the people that I have met and come across, even just being a part of the WiM organization, when I meet some of these ladies at Summit or any of the other events we have, just listening to them talk and listening to what their day-to-day involves and how it affects our day-to-day life, I feel like I'm just very new to learning the technical side of things, how our equipment works for each one of our customers. We just recently, over the last few years, started, in addition to selling the CNC machinery, we're also selling automation. So that is becoming a big thing today. And I'm just starting to learn all the difference between the grippers or what arm you might need for this job or whatever the case may be. I'm just starting to learn all of that. And I find it fascinating. There is a lot to learn. My husband is one of our applications engineers. So sometimes our dinner table talks consist of me asking questions. For a long time, I kept saying, well, what's the difference between a mill and what's the difference between a lathe? And having that desire to learn more. If we have a demo day, you will find me out by one of the machines watching and seeing, well, what are you doing here? And they're probably a little annoyed because I ask 100 questions. But then I've had some of the guys say to me things like, well, how do you not know this? You've been here for so long. Well, do you know our QuickBooks system or our Salesforce system? No. So I'm more focused on the day-to-day operations of the company, and I've got that down pat. So now it's time for me to kind of evolve and take on some more of the learning that comes with diving into the manufacturing industry. And I think a pivotal moment for me in that was about 2 years ago. I was actually paired with a mentor through WiM. That is where some of my knowledge has come from. And like I said, meeting women at Summit, or just even women within my chapter in New York, just seeing what they get to do on their day-to-day and being on a production floor, or some of them aren't on a production floor. They're doing risk insurance, or they're an accountant for a manufacturing company. So I think I'm just getting started with, as far as the average time for someone is 5 years. The other side of it is what I've noticed after being here for as long as I have is I've seen the retention problem firsthand. And it's very discouraging to me because I've watched people who they wanted something very quickly and it wasn't organically happening for them within their time frame. So I think that's something that there's this stigma around it where you set a goal for yourself and it has to be by January 1st, I want that promotion, or I want that raise, or whatever it is. And kind of letting go of that to an extent within reason. But I've seen people leave our company, and had they stayed maybe even just 3 more months, they might have been moved on to a different position. They don't give enough time where they're on to the next best thing so quickly that they're jumping around from place to place to find that. And while I've had other opportunities come along, I've always felt that my time here has been very well spent. I have quite a community actually of people, and it's just altogether being a part of a family organization is a lot different feel than a corporate world. But in the same breath, how do I know? Because I've never worked in a big corporation. So I really, truly enjoy our company culture, our values. It all aligns with my own values. So that's part of the reason why I've stayed. And I think, like I said, I'm just getting started. I'm ready to go to all of our customers. I want to go on sales calls. I want to go on service visits. I want to dive into a little bit of all of it, a little bit of everything.
That's excellent.
Are you looking for an opportunity to grow your career in manufacturing? The February 8th Women in Manufacturing Virtual Career Fair, held in partnership with the Society of Manufacturing Engineers, allows you to showcase your skills and resume with top manufacturing companies from across the country. Don't miss this unique opportunity to stand out in front of companies that emphasize DEI initiatives and are currently hiring. Visit womeninmanufacturing.org to learn more about and to register for the WiM Virtual Career Fair on February 8th.
So as you think about it, I think this kind of connects with your prior comments around some advice for women who are in careers and or looking for careers in manufacturing. When you look at this population of, we have a record number of women graduating from 4-year degreed schools. We have a record number of women receiving certifications. What recommendations would you give them if they're looking potentially to enter manufacturing or join a manufacturing company?
Go to school for engineering. And I say that and I am not an engineer, but no, that is actually a theme. We recently actually had our first female intern who was a student at RPI, and she was a dual major. And I know I'll probably get this wrong, but it was mechanical and aerospace engineering, like a 2-for-1. And I'm talking like, I don't even know how to pronounce half of it. So I think that really understanding the different paths, there were days where I was Googling, what are all the types of engineering and what's the difference between chemical and mechanical, and just trying to understand it. And to me, I think, when you're 18 years old and someone is telling you, well, you have to decide today what you want to do for the rest of your life. It's just unrealistic unless you really are heart set and you know what path you want to follow. But I think that's the biggest thing. Your path might change. And in manufacturing, there are so many different paths. The amount of people that I have met that really all walks of life. They're doing accounting, they're doing production, they're quality engineers. There are so many different paths. So I think it's important to understand the different paths and realize that there's more than one choice. The other side of it is, I'm sure we've all seen this line on LinkedIn or wherever, having that idea that it's not your grandfather's machine shop anymore. It's not this dirty, dingy job. Now, granted, yes, I'm sure there are shops out there that could use a good once over and cleaning, but just even the amount of things that we're doing with automation these days, the technology is changing. The whole atmosphere as a whole is changing. And I think having more women, bringing more women in, whether they're in a leadership role or production role, you're bringing a different perspective. And it just is really driving the innovation behind things. It's changing manufacturing industry as a whole. And I think there are a lot of male allies who are open to this idea. Now, it doesn't mean you won't come across a few where you have a little bit of a struggle, but I think the more we kind of band together and work together, male and female, is where you're going to get your success. Something else that I found is the exposure at a young age. My youngest daughter just turned 8, and she will tell people manufacturing runs in my family. So that is kind of a goal of mine. And as a mother, I have to be very careful and very strategic and not shove it down their throat. But I want her to one day pick a career, and I am the influence. Many times you meet women in manufacturing and the story is, well, my dad had a machine shop, or my dad was an engineer, or my dad. So how about my mom? My mom worked in the manufacturing industry, and that's kind of trying to be very tasteful about it, like I said, because, you know, our children are very impressionable, but we do a lot of work with schools, and we start as young as elementary school, middle school. My daughter actually, she entered the STEM fair this year, and she and my husband are drawing up their plans, and she's asking, well, why can't we 3D print this whole thing? So, well, no, you're in second grade and you're 8 years old, and I don't think you could bring an entirely 3D printed project to the STEM fair, but it's just getting her engaged and getting her interested in a different aspect of the world that they're not always subjected to in school. But I do believe that they are trying to integrate that more with the younger generation.
It's great advice. Kudos to you on the outreach that you and your company are doing into elementary schools, because I think all this research that we've seen present day indicates that we need to be exposing kids earlier and at a much younger age to manufacturing for them to be likely to want to select a career in manufacturing. And I love your sentiment around why can't moms be the influence of what career a kid selects? I have 2 kids myself who are both teenagers, and I hope that they're influenced by what I do and the work of women in manufacturing and the manufacturing industry and the exposure they've had to it. But as well, we need more moms to be spokespeople. So I think doing things like, as you're participating today and talking about your story, going to career fairs and going into the classrooms and talking about whatever it may be that you do within the manufacturing space, because that one story or anecdote, we can't take for granted the impact it could have or the inspiration it could have for someone who's sitting in that classroom. On this podcast, it's interesting the number of times it's been shared that it was, you know, an early person that a person came in contact with, that was that spirited them to want to collect and to pursue a career in manufacturing. You know, it was someone who came into a classroom, or that they met at a career fair, or that was a faculty member or educator. Praise to you for doing that. And I think it's exciting that you're influencing your daughter and her classmates to hopefully enter a STEM career and or manufacturing career.
Yeah, I even actually, anytime I've had an opportunity, there was one specific where it was Women in Manufacturing Career Night at one of the schools we partner with. And I brought both my daughters with me. And, you know, I have a teenager, so she wasn't as excited about it as my 8-year-old, but my 8-year-old daughter went to every table, to every vendor participant there and asked them, so what do you do? And she got, you know, more than just the pens, but she came away with something. And I think it really is important at a young age.
It is. It's really important. So as you think about your career and the advice you've received along the way, is there one piece of advice that stands out that you received that's influenced your decision-making and your experience in your career you might be willing to share with our audience?
So I would say it's definitely hard to hammer down one piece of advice, but there is something that definitely sticks out for me. And I would say, as I talked about my own experience, it was really reading outside the job description. If someone asked me to book a flight, if someone asked me to order pizza, I never said no. It wasn't until later in my career that I realized the importance of setting boundaries. However, had I been so strict about setting boundaries years ago, I might not be in the role that I am today. But I think healthy boundaries is something that I've learned over the last probably 2-3 years. And it really, for your mental health, for your peace of mind, it's okay to say no once in a while, but don't say no to the good opportunities that are going to lead you somewhere else later down the line. But I think definitely boundaries are a really important thing. It's something as a recovering people pleaser, I myself am learning, and it's hard and it's uncomfortable, but it's only a little bit uncomfortable to get through. And it is hard, but that passes. And then there might be a reward on the other end of that. I do believe setting boundaries is a very important thing. And I think the theme of my entire conversation today is really just be patient. Like I said, my story that I'm sharing is over a 13-year time period. And by no means was anything handed to me, was anything easy. There's a lot of hard work, a lot of long days. I went through an entire maternity leave while working at Allendale. That was a newfound juggling act, we'll call it, trying to navigate having 2 children, being a mother to a newborn, and having a career as well. And not to discredit women in the workforce who are not mothers, but I think just being as a working mother, it's hard. You have the capability to do it. You just have to figure it out for yourself. Really, even if you have the most supportive partner in the world, it is something that you yourself has to figure out and navigate with the help of your village also.
Right. Yeah, being a working mom is definitely not that easy. And I think, that's what we hope the women in manufacturing community can help support, is that knowing that it takes a village, as we know is often said. And I think advice from other moms who have successfully gone through raising kids at the same time as trying to support a career is really helpful to learn some of their tricks and get some of their advice along the way to help guide our success as we're trying to raise kids and have a career professionally. So great advice.
I've only been a member of Women in Manufacturing for about 2 years. I think April will be 2 years. I took on the role of chair in August, and the amount of times I've gotten on a call and I try explaining to somebody why they want to be a member of WiM and what the benefits are, you really have to find out for yourself. I think having attended 2 summits, those were serious pivotal moments for me coming back with, this past summit, a big theme was imposter syndrome. And that is something I have struggled with for a long time, but hearing others be so vulnerable and brave to get up on a stage and share their story, it just really is so impactful for not just your career development, but your personal development as a person. I think being a part of WiM has definitely changed me in a few different ways. And the relationships and networking that you get along with it, that's added bonus too. So I definitely think it's helped as a working mother. When you're traveling, I'm all the way in California talking to other moms and figuring out, so how do you do it when your kids have all of these activities, and are you meal prepping before you leave? And the amount of things as a mom that you have to do in order to travel for 2 days is quite literally crazy, but we do it and it's worth it. And it's showing our children that just because you have taken on the role of becoming a mother doesn't mean your life or your career is over. You can have both. And it's really that life work integration. I have stopped trying to balance because it's quite literally a juggling act. So it really, though, I just needed to throw that in there, that having been a part of WiM has really helped me personally and professionally.
That's great. Well, thank you for the endorsement. And we hope that people that are listening, if you're not engaged with WiM, will consider engaging with us, whether it be at the local chapter level, as Tricia is. But in addition, be part of our national organization, which is getting really close to being 30,000 members strong, which is really exciting.
Yeah, the growth has been like crazy.
Yeah, it's been a good few years. And again, our goal is to support, promote, and inspire women in manufacturing careers and to reach as many women and employers as possible. So, knowing that there's more than 3 million women in manufacturing, we've got a long way to go, but we've made great progress in meeting more people and connecting and providing resources to more people, which is really, really rewarding for us as an organization. So Tricia, it's been such a delight to talk to you today, and I so appreciate you sharing your story with our audience. And I know you're just kind of in this mid part of your career, and you've got, I'm sure, great things ahead. So we wish you nothing but great success in the future. And we hope we can continue to be an ally and a support organization that you lean on. And thanks again for being part of Hear Her Story.
Thank you so much, Allison.
Thank you for listening to Hear Her Story, a podcast produced by the Women in Manufacturing Association. Be sure to share, review, and subscribe to Hear Her Story on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you like to listen.